From Ethan Cole returned to his ranch at sunset. After 2 years on the cattle trail, he had spent that time driving herds across dangerous country, saving every dollar he could to pay the debt his father had left behind. Even so, the money in his saddlebag was not enough. He expected to find the ranch abandoned, the cattle gone, and the land already claimed by the bank. Instead, the front gate stood straight between two new posts. Ethan slowed his horse. The southern fence had been repaired. Fresh wire ran along the pasture. 12 cattle grazed beyond it. Thin but healthy, he had left almost the same number behind when he departed. That was impossible. Walter Reed, the old neighbor he had asked to check the property, could not have maintained the ranch alone. Walter had a bad leg and barely managed his own land. Ethan rode through the gate and studied the pasture. Most of the ground was still dry, but a narrow strip of green grass crossed the lower field. It followed a shallow curve from the barn toward the northern willows. That field had always been the worst part of the ranch. Water never stayed there. Rain rushed across it and vanished, leaving hard clay behind. Now it was the only green ground in sight. Smoke rose from the chimney of the main house. Ethan's hand moved toward his revolver. Someone was living there. He dismounted near the porch. A full water barrel stood beside the steps. Firewood had been stacked against the wall. A woman's dress hung from the clothesline. The barn door opened behind him. Ethan turned and drew his gun. A woman stepped into the yard carrying an armful of hay. She was in her early 30s, dressed in a faded gray work dress and worn boots. Her brown hair was tied behind her neck. She saw the gun but did not run. She placed the hay beside the barn. You came back later than I expected," she said. Ethan kept the revolver lowered but ready. "Who are you, Clara Hayes? What are you doing on my land, keeping your cattle alive? That does not explain why you are living in my house." Walter was injured last winter. Someone had to stay close enough to manage the herd. Ethan stepped toward her. "You repaired the fences, yes? You fed the cattle when there was feed." And when there was not? Clara looked toward the green strip in the field. "I found another way." Ethan followed her gaze. "What did you do to that pasture?" "I stopped treating it like dead land." He looked back at her. "That ground has been useless for 20 years. That is what everyone believed." Clara walked to the water trough and removed a leather-bound ledger from a wooden box beneath it. She handed it to him. Inside were records of every expense made during his absence: fence wire, medicine, feed, taxes, and 2 bank payments. Dates and amounts had been written carefully beside each entry. Ethan turned several pages. "You paid the bank twice, with whose money? Mine." He looked up sharply. "You spent your savings on a ranch you do not own? If I had not, Silas Boone would have taken the cattle." Boone was the town banker and the man holding the ranch debt. Before Ethan left, Boone had called the land worthless and predicted it would fail before Ethan returned. How much time did the payments buy? Not enough. Clara removed a folded notice from the ledger. Ethan opened it. The bank had given him 21 days to settle the remaining debt or lose the ranch. He reached for the saddlebag and placed his money on the trough. Clara looked at the amount. "It will not cover what you owe," she said. "I know then the cattle and the land will be seized." Ethan folded the notice. "If Boone thinks the ranch is worthless." "Why does he want it?" Clara looked north again. "That is the question you should be asking." She led him into the lower pasture. The soil changed beneath their boots as they reached the green strip. Outside it, the ground was dry and hard. Inside it, the earth was cooler and softer. Clara pushed an iron rod into the soil. It sank several inches. She handed it to Ethan and pointed toward the dry ground beside them. He pushed again. The rod stopped almost immediately. "What is under this field?" he asked. "I do not know yet. Then why is the grass growing?" "Because moisture remains beneath this line longer than anywhere else." Ethan looked toward the northern willows. "There is no creek on this ranch, not on the county map." Clara opened the ledger to a hand-drawn sketch. A curved line crossed the lower field. Matching the green grass almost exactly. "The cattle kept gathering here during the hottest part of summer," she said. "They found the damp ground before I did. Then I found willow roots. Dark soil and smooth stones buried under the clay. Creek stones, possibly." Ethan studied the line. "You think there was water here?" "I think there still is." A rider appeared beyond the eastern fence. He sat on a gray horse, watching them from the road. Ethan recognized him as Martin Vale, a clerk from Boone's Bank. The man remained there for a moment, then turned toward town. Clara closed the ledger. "He has been watching the ranch for weeks. Why? Because Boone offered me money to leave. Ethan turned toward her when after he learned I had been digging near the northern field. From how much enough to recover everything I spent. And you refused. Yes, why? Clara looked at the green grass beneath their feet. Because a man does not pay someone to leave land he truly believes is worthless. From the meaning was clear. Boone knew something. Ethan looked across the pasture he had expected to find dead. The cattle were alive. The grass had returned along a hidden line. The banker wanted the land. And the woman who had saved it believed water was buried beneath the soil. He had come home thinking the only problem was the debt. Now he understood that someone had been waiting for the ranch to fail. When do we search the northern field? He asked. At first light, Ethan looked toward the road where Boone's clerk had disappeared. We may not have that long, Clara met his eyes. Then we start before dawn. Before sunrise, Ethan and Clara crossed the lower pasture carrying 2 shovels, a lantern, and the iron rod she had used to test the soil. The cattle were still gathered near the green strip, their hooves dark with damp earth. Clara followed the grass toward the northern willows. Ethan walked beside her, watching the ground. You said you found smooth stones, he said. Near the base of the ridge, and you think they mark an old creek? They follow the same line as the grass? That does not prove water is still there? No, that is why we are digging. The green strip narrowed as the land rose. Near the willows it disappeared beneath thorn brush and dry clay. Clara stopped beside a low bank, partly hidden by roots. She pushed the iron rod into the ground. It sank nearly to the handle. Here, she said. Ethan cleared the brush while Clara removed loose soil from the bank. Within minutes they uncovered a row of rotting timbers held between 2 stone supports. Ethan ran his hand across the wood. This was built by my grandfather. You recognize it? He called it the North Flood Barrier. A storm once sent water through the lower pasture and drowned part of the herd. Clara studied the structure. It stopped the flood by sending the water east. She pointed to a deep channel leading away from the bank. The channel connected with the drainage ditch near the property line. Ethan understood what she meant. Any water reaching the ridge would be redirected before it entered the pasture. The barrier saved the ranch, he said. Once, Clara replied, but after the flood passed. No one opened the old route again. You think it has been draining the land ever since. I think every storm brings water to this point, and this wall sends most of it away. Ethan drove his shovel into the soil beneath the timbers. The upper layer was hard clay, but the earth below it was darker and softer. At 2 feet, the blade struck stone. He knelt and pulled out a rounded rock, then another. Clara took one and wiped away the mud. Water-shaped these, Ethan dug along the bank. More stones appeared beneath the clay, forming a narrow bed that curved toward the lower pasture. The old creek had been real. Clara pushed the iron rod into the exposed gravel. When she pulled it out, moisture covered the lower end. Ethan touched it. There is water beneath us. Moisture, she corrected. It may be trapped rainwater, but it has not rained in 9 days. That is why this matters. Ethan stood and examined the barrier. We removed part of it. Clara stepped between him and the timbers. No, you just proved. It is blocking the channel. We proved an old channel exists. We do not know how much water is behind this bank. We have 21 days, and if you tear it open too quickly, you could wash away the lower pasture in 1 hour. Ethan looked toward the dry field. There is hardly anything left to wash away. There is enough soil left to save. He lowered the shovel, frustrated but listening. What do you suggest? We trace the channel farther uphill. If there is a seep or a spring feeding it, we open a narrow test cut. If there is only storm runoff, we build a controlled spillway. You have done this before? My father dug wells and drainage channels. I worked beside him. That does not make you an engineer. No, it makes me cautious. A horse approached from the east. Ethan turned. Martin Vale. Silas Boone's clerk rode through the northern gate without asking permission. His gray coat was buttoned to the neck, and a leather document case hung from his saddle. He stopped 20 feet away. Mr. Cole, Martin said. I heard you had returned. You heard quickly. Mr. Boone keeps track of property tied to his bank. This property still belongs to me for 20 more days. According to the notice, Clara covered the exposed gravel with loose soil. Martin noticed. What are you digging fence posts? Ethan said. There is no fence here. There will be if I decide to build one. Martin dismounted and stepped toward the bank. Ethan blocked him. You entered my land without permission. I came on bank business, then conduct it from where you are standing. From Martin opened the document case and removed a folded paper. Mr. Boone is prepared to make an offer. He will forgive the remaining debt and provide enough money for you to leave the valley. From, in exchange for the ranch, in exchange for land that cannot support its current debt. Ethan glanced at Clara. Her suspicion had been right. Boone was not waiting for the foreclosure. From, he wanted Ethan to sell before they understood what lay beneath the field. How generous is the offer? Ethan asked. Martin named an amount. It was more than Ethan had expected. From, but far below what the ranch would be worth with reliable water. Clara remained silent. Ethan folded the paper without reading the details. Tell Boone I am not selling. Martin looked toward the green strip below them. From, you should think carefully. A few patches of grass do not change the condition of this land. I did not mention the grass. Martin's expression tightened. Ethan stepped closer. Why is Boone interested in a ranch he has called worthless for 2 years? From, the bank is interested in recovering its money. Then why offer me more than I owe? Martin returned the paper to his case. This offer expires tomorrow evening. It expired when you crossed the gate. From, Martin mounted his horse before leaving. He looked at Clara. You should have accepted Mr. Bone's earlier offer. Ethan turned toward her, but she kept her eyes on Martin. What earlier offer? From, Ethan asked. Martin smiled faintly. She did not tell you, Clara answered before he could continue. He offered to repay what I spent if I left the ranch before you returned. Ethan looked back at Martin. From, and why would Boone pay her to leave land he considers useless? Martin pulled the reins. You have 20 days, Mr. Cole. He rode toward the eastern gate. Ethan watched until the horse disappeared beyond the fence. From, you should have told me, he said. There was nothing to tell. I refused. How much did he offer? Enough to start somewhere else. Why did you refuse? Because he made the offer 2 days after one of his men saw me digging here. From, Ethan looked at the buried timbers. Boone knew about the old channel, or at least suspected it held value. That explained why he had tried to remove Clara and why his clerk had come before sunrise. From, we continue, Ethan said. Clara nodded toward the ridge. Uphill first, they followed the line of willows west. Most were dead, but several near the top of the slope still carried green leaves. From, Clara tested the soil every few yards. The rod came out dry twice, then damp near a cluster of stones. Ethan cleared the brush and found a shallow depression hidden beneath roots. From, the ground inside it was dark. Clara pressed her hand against the soil. Cold, she said. They dug carefully. Less than a foot below the surface, water began collecting in the bottom of the hole. From, it was not a flowing spring, but the water continued rising after they stopped digging. Ethan crouched beside it. This is feeding the channel. Slowly, Clara said. The clay traps it near the surface. From, can it support the ranch? Not by itself. Then what good is it? It proves the land holds water longer than bonus valuation claims. Ethan looked disappointed. Clara continued. From, and if this seep connects to storm runoff, we may be able to spread water across the lower pasture instead of losing it through the eastern ditch. How long before the grass changes? From, some sections already have. How long before an assessor believes us? That depends on whether we can show controlled water movement. Ethan stood. Then we open a test cut. Clara marked a narrow section beside the old barrier. From, instead of removing the timbers, they dug a shallow passage around the western edge. The cut was no wider than Ethan's boot. At first nothing happened. Then a thin stream of muddy water appeared between the stones. From, it moved slowly into the old gravel bed. Ethan and Clara followed it down the slope. The water vanished beneath the clay in some places, then surfaced again several yards later. From, by the time it reached the lower pasture, only a wet line remained. But the line followed the green grass exactly. Ethan knelt and pressed his palm into the soil. The ranch had not lacked water completely. From, it had been losing it before the land could use it. Clara stood beside him. We do not need to create a river, she said. We need to keep the water here long enough for the soil to absorb it. From, Ethan looked toward the eastern ditch, then back at the hidden channel. What comes next? We strengthen the test cut, slow the flow with stone, and wait for rain. The bank will not wait. From, no, Boone will move faster now. As if summoned by his name, a bell rang faintly from the direction of the house. Ethan stood. That is the yard bell. They returned quickly. Walter Reed waited beside the porch. From, leaning on his cane, a rider from town stood near him holding another document. Walter's face was tense. Boone filed for an immediate livestock inspection, he said. He claims the herd is losing value and must be seized before the foreclosure hearing. From, Ethan took the paper. The inspection was scheduled for the following morning. If Boone convinced the county that the cattle were unhealthy, the bank could remove them before Ethan had a chance to prove the ranch was recovering. Ethan looked toward the herd. The cattle were alive because Clara had preserved the green pasture. Now that same pasture would have to prove they were worth keeping. We have until tomorrow. He said. Clara looked at the narrow line of water moving through the field. Then today, we make sure they see what Boone hoped would stay buried. The county inspector arrived shortly after sunrise with Silas Boone and 2 hired riders. Ethan stood at the gate beside Clara and Walter. The cattle had already been moved into the lower pasture where the green grass was thickest. Clara had checked each animal before dawn and separated 1 cow with an injured hoof, so Boone could not use it as evidence against the entire herd. The inspector introduced himself as Samuel Price. He was an older man with a weathered face and a leather notebook tucked beneath his coat. I am here to determine whether the herd is losing value, he said. If the animals are being neglected, the bank may request immediate seizure. They are not being neglected, Ethan replied. Boone stepped down from his carriage. That is for Mr. Price to decide. He looked across the ranch as if it already belonged to him. Price entered the pasture and examined the cattle. One by one, he checked their ribs, teeth, eyes, and hooves. Clara stayed several steps behind him, answering only when he asked a question. What have they been eating? Price asked. Pasture grass, stored hay, and mineral salt. Clara said, this land cannot produce enough grass for 12 cattle. Most of it cannot. She pointed toward the green strip. That section can? Price walked into the grass and pressed his boot into the soil. Boone followed him. A narrow patch does not make a functioning ranch, Boone said. It kept the herd alive. Clara replied. Boone looked at her. Barely. Price examined several clumps of grass, then wrote something in his notebook. How long has this area been green? Since the first controlled runoff last season. Clara said. Boone turned quickly. Controlled by whom? I slowed the water coming from the northern ridge. You altered the drainage? I placed stone and brush in small erosion channels. Without permission from the county? The work stayed within the property, Boone smiled. Mr. Price, unmanaged water diversion could damage neighboring land. That alone may justify intervention. Ethan stepped between them. This inspection is about the cattle. It is about the value protecting my loan, Boone said. Price raised one hand. I will decide what is relevant. They continued toward the water trough. Price checked the water and found it clean. He then inspected the barn, the stored hay, and Clara's medical supplies. Everything was organized. Boone's confidence began to fade. At the north pen, Price stopped beside the cow. Clara had separated. Stone bruise, Clara said. The hoof is clean, no infection. Price lifted the animal's leg and inspected it. She should recover. Boone opened his document case. I have statements from 2 men who saw cattle collapsing here last winter. Clara looked at him. 2 cattle became weak after the well nearly failed. Both recovered. One was later sold. One broke a leg. Boone handed the inspector a signed statement. Price read it. Who wrote this? Martin Vale collected the testimony from whom? From men familiar with the ranch? Walter struck his cane against the ground. One of them has never crossed this fence. Boone ignored him. Price closed the statement. I inspect animals. Mr. Boone, I do not decide cases from town gossip. They returned to the lower pasture. The cattle were spread across the green strip, grazing calmly. Price watched them for several minutes. The herd is lean, he said. Boone nodded. Exactly, but not dangerously so. Boone's expression tightened. Price continued. Their eyes are clear. Their movement is steady. There is no evidence of widespread illness or starvation. I see no reason for immediate seizure. Ethan released a breath he had been holding since dawn. Boone did not move. You are overlooking the condition of the land, he said. I was asked to inspect the livestock. The land cannot support them through another season. Price looked toward the pasture. That may become a problem. It is not one today. He signed the final page of his report and handed a copy to Ethan. The cattle would remain on the ranch. Boone walked toward his carriage without speaking. Ethan followed him. You tried to take the herd before I could challenge your valuation. Boone stopped. I am protecting an unpaid debt. You offered to buy the ranch before the inspection, a practical solution. You called the land worthless, then offered more than I owe. Boone turned toward him. You have 20 days left. Do not mistake a temporary inspection result for salvation. He climbed into the carriage. Before leaving, he looked toward the northern ridge. From the next storm will prove whether your woman saved this ranch or merely delayed its death. The carriage rolled away. Ethan watched until it reached the main road. He knows we changed the drainage. He said. Clara stood beside him. He knows enough to be afraid of it. Walter returned to the house, leaving Ethan and Clara near the pasture. What happens now? Ethan asked. We prepare for rain. There is no storm in sight. There will be, she pointed toward the western horizon. Thin clouds had begun gathering above the ridge. Ethan studied them. How soon? 2 days, maybe 3. And what do we need to do? Strengthen the test channel, place stones where the slope becomes steep, and block the worst cuts leading toward the eastern ditch. Can we finish in time? If we do not waste daylight, they worked through the afternoon. Ethan hauled stone from the dry creek bed, while Clara shaped the narrow channel around the old timber barrier. They did not remove the wall. Instead, they created a controlled opening that allowed only a small amount of water into the buried gravel bed. At each steep section, they placed branches and rocks to slow the flow. By sunset, the channel stretched from the damp ground near the ridge to the beginning of the green pasture. It was still small. It would not carry enough water to flood the field. But it might keep the next rain from leaving the ranch. Ethan stood beside the finished section. My grandfather built the barrier to stop water, and we are not undoing his work. Clara said. We are giving part of the water another path. What if we are wrong? The pasture may stay dry. What if we are very wrong? The lower field could erode. Ethan looked toward the house. And Boone would take the ranch. He may take it anyway. Her directness no longer angered him. It made him trust her. The following morning, they continued reinforcing the channel. Near midday, Walter rode slowly from the house with a letter in his hand. It came from the county office, he said. Ethan opened it. Boone had filed a complaint claiming that recent work on the northern ridge might redirect water onto his property. A county surveyor would arrive in 4 days. Ethan looked toward Boone's southern land. The water flows east, not south. Now it does, Clara said. He knows that, yes? Then the complaint is only meant to stop us. Clara took the letter and read it. If the county orders the channel closed before the storm, we lose our chance to prove it works. Ethan folded the paper. Then we finish before the surveyor arrives. That evening the wind changed. Clouds covered the western sky, darker and heavier than before. The cattle gathered near the barn. Birds disappeared from the fence lines. Clara walked to the lower pasture and pushed the iron rod into the ground. The soil beneath the green strip was still damp. Ethan joined her. Will it hold? The ground will tell us tomorrow. Thunder sounded beyond the ridge. They returned to the northern barrier as the first drops fell. Ethan checked the stone supports, while Clara cleared loose soil from the opening. Rain began striking the dry earth. Within minutes, water moved down from the ridge. It reached the old barrier and collected behind the rotting timbers. Most of it turned east toward the original drainage ditch. A smaller stream entered the new opening. It moved through the stones exactly as Clara had planned. Ethan followed it downhill. The water remained narrow and slow. It spread into the buried gravel bed, disappeared beneath the clay, then surfaced again farther down the field, for the first time in years. Rainwater entered the lower pasture without tearing through it. Then a sharp cracking sound came from behind them. One of the old timber supports had shifted. The water behind the barrier pushed harder against the weakened wall. Clara ran uphill. If that section breaks, the whole flow will come through. Ethan grabbed a shovel. Can we reinforce it? Not from this side. The timber moved again. Mud poured through a widening gap. Clara pointed toward the eastern channel. We need to clear the old outlet. It will reduce the pressure that sends the water off the ranch. It is better than losing the field. Ethan hesitated only a second, then ran with her toward the eastern ditch. They pulled branches and debris from the outlet while rain hammered the ridge. Water rushed past them. Carrying mud and leaves toward Boone's property line. The pressure against the barrier began to fall. The timbers held. When they returned to the lower pasture, the controlled stream was still moving through the new channel. The grass bent beneath the rain, but the soil remained in place. Clara knelt and pressed her hand into the ground. It is absorbing. Ethan looked across the field. Water was spreading through the green strip instead of escaping in one violent rush. They had not restored a creek, but they had proven the old channel could still carry water. A lantern appeared near the eastern fence. Someone was standing beyond the property line. From lightning crossed the sky, revealing Martin Vale beside the drainage ditch. He watched the water moving from the ridge, then turned and rode south. Ethan wiped rain from his face. From He Will Tell Boone, Clara stood good. Ethan looked at her. Why good? Because tomorrow Boone will have to decide whether he still wants everyone to believe this land is worthless. From the rain continued through the night. By morning, the lower pasture had changed. Small pools remained between the grass, but there was no deep erosion. The eastern ditch had carried away the excess. While the old gravel bed held moisture across the field. Ethan drove the iron rod into the ground. It sank almost to the handle. Clara looked toward the northern ridge. One storm is not enough to save the ranch. No, Ethan said, but it may be enough to prove Boone lied about it. A rider approached from town before breakfast. He brought a message from the county surveyor. The inspection had been moved forward. The surveyor would arrive that afternoon. Boone was no longer waiting 4 days. He intended to stop them before the wet ground could become evidence. The county surveyor arrived shortly after noon. Accompanied by Silas Boone and Martin Vale. His name was Henry Mercer. He carried a measuring chain, a level, and a rolled set of county maps. Ethan met them at the northern gate, with Clara beside him. Boone looked toward the wet lower pasture. You altered the drainage before the county could inspect it, he said. We slowed runoff on our own land, Ethan replied. You redirected water toward neighboring property. The eastern ditch has carried water that way for decades. Mercer raised one hand. I will determine where the water went. He began at the old timber barrier. Clara showed him the controlled opening they had cut beside it. She explained that most of the stormwater had continued east through the original ditch, while a smaller amount entered the buried gravel channel. Mercer inspected the stones and the damp soil. Who designed this opening? He asked. I did, Clara said. You have drainage training? My father dug wells and irrigation channels. I worked with him. Boone gave a dismissive laugh. So the ranch is now being managed by guesswork. Mercer ignored him. He measured the slope from the ridge to the lower pasture. Then he followed the eastern ditch to the boundary. Martin walked behind him, watching every mark he made. At the southern end of the ditch, Mercer stopped. No fresh erosion, he said. Boone stepped closer. The storm was not strong enough. It was strong enough to move water through the channel. Mercer pointed to a line of wet leaves caught against the bank. The flow remained inside the existing ditch, so there was no damage to Boone's land? Ethan asked. I have not finished. They returned to the lower pasture. The ground remained wet, but no deep cuts had formed. The water had spread through the grass and soaked into the soil. Mercer pushed a metal rod into the green strip. It sank almost 2 feet. He tested the dry ground several yards away. The rod stopped near the surface. What caused the difference? He asked. Clara pointed north. The old gravel bed runs beneath the green strip. Water moves through it slowly and stays under the surface longer. Boone opened one of the county maps. There is no creek marked here. Maps are not always complete, Mercer said. This survey has been used for 40 years. That does not mean every buried channel is shown. Mercer asked Ethan to take him back to the excavation near the barrier. They removed the loose soil covering the stones. Mercer knelt and examined them. The gravel was rounded and layered beneath the clay. This was once a watercourse, he said. Boone's expression changed. Once, he repeated. It is dry now. Mercer touched the exposed soil, not entirely. He inserted the rod deeper between the stones. When he pulled it out, the lower end was wet. Boone stepped forward. Trapped stormwater proves nothing. It proves the soil holds water, Mercer replied. It does not make the property more valuable. That is not the question I was sent to answer. Mercer stood and looked at Clara. Have you opened any other part of the barrier? No, do not remove the timbers, Ethan frowned. Are you ordering us to close the test channel? No, I am ordering you not to widen it until the structure is assessed. The old wall is unstable, Boone turned to him. Then their work is unauthorized. I did not say that. Mercer looked at the controlled opening. The cut is small and has not caused damage. It can remain temporarily, Boone's voice hardened. Temporarily until I file my report, and what will the report say? That the complaint of water being diverted onto your land is not supported by what I've found today. Martin stopped writing. Boone stared at Mercer. You are willing to accept the word of a woman with no title over county records? I am accepting measurements. Mercer walked back toward the lower pasture. The existing eastern ditch carried most of the stormwater. The new opening reduced pressure behind the barrier and allowed a limited amount of water into an older channel within the Cole property. From Ethan looked at Boone. So the work stays for now, Mercer said. Boone folded the county map. You were sent here to protect neighboring land. I was sent here to inspect a drainage complaint. From there is no visible damage beyond the boundary. He returned to his horse, but before mounting, he addressed Ethan. There is another issue. What issue? Mercer looked across the lower field. If this buried channel carries water consistently, the county valuation may be incomplete. Boone stepped between them. The foreclosure has nothing to do with drainage. It may have something to do with the property value. Mercer replied. Ethan understood immediately. If the ranch was worth more than Boone had claimed, the bank's argument for immediate seizure weakened. Ethan could seek a new loan or request a formal reassessment. What do we need? Ethan asked. Evidence that the moisture is not limited to one storm. How long? Several weeks would be better. We have less than 3. Mercer considered that. Then document everything. Water depth, soil moisture, grass recovery, cattle condition. If you can show a persistent pattern, request an emergency appraisal. Boone moved closer. This is outside your authority. My authority is to record what I observed, and what did you observe? Mercer faced him. A ranch that holds more water than your complaint suggested. Silence followed. Boone turned toward Ethan. You are building hope around mud? No, Ethan said. You built your offer around everyone believing there was none. Boone climbed into his carriage. The debt remains due. I know then. Enjoy your wet field while it still belongs to you. He signaled Martin, and they left without another word. Mercer waited until the carriage passed through the gate. Boone will challenge my report, he said. Will that stop the reassessment? Ethan asked. It may delay it. We cannot afford delay, then find stronger proof. Clara looked toward the ridge. The seep. Mercer followed her gaze. What seep? They led him to the shallow hole near the upper willows. Water still stood at the bottom, even though the rain had ended hours earlier. Mercer measured the depth, marked the location, and examined the surrounding vegetation. This may be groundwater, he said. Can it support livestock? Ethan asked. Not at this flow. Ethan's hope faded, Mercer continued, but it may feed a larger shallow layer beneath the clay. The old gravel bed could be carrying that moisture across the field. How do we prove it? Dig test holes along the channel. Do not make them deep. If the same water level appears in several locations after the surface dries, you have evidence of a connected system. Clara nodded. How many? At least 4 between here and the lower pasture. Mercer mounted his horse. I will submit my report tomorrow. After that, Boone may move faster. He already is. Ethan said. Then so should you. As soon as Mercer left, Ethan and Clara began digging. They placed the first test hole near the willows, the second halfway down the slope, and 2 more along the green strip. The upper holes filled slowly with clear water. The lower ones remained damp but empty. By evening, Ethan was frustrated. This is not enough. It is the first day, Clara said. We do not have enough days. She pushed the iron rod into the 3rd hole and listened as it struck gravel below the clay. The water is moving slowly. That is why the grass survives, and slow water will not stop a foreclosure. No proof might. They covered the holes with wooden boards and marked each location. The next morning, the first 2 held water. The 3rd had collected a shallow pool. The 4th remained dark and moist. Clara measured each depth and recorded it. For 3 days they repeated the process. The surface dried, the eastern ditch emptied, but water remained beneath the old channel. At the same time, the lower pasture changed. New green shoots appeared between the older grass. The cattle spent less time near the trough and more time grazing along the damp strip. Walter helped Clara update the records while Ethan repaired fencing around the test sites. On the 4th morning, a letter arrived from Mercer. His report confirmed 3 points. The controlled opening had not damaged Boone's property. The lower field contained an old buried watercourse, and the ranch showed signs of persistent subsurface moisture. It was enough to request an emergency reassessment. Ethan read the report twice. This gives us a chance. Clara did not answer. She was looking toward the main road. 3 riders were approaching. Boone rode in front. Behind him came Martin and a deputy carrying a sealed document. Ethan walked to the gate. Boone handed him the paper. The bank has petitioned the court to advance the foreclosure hearing. Ethan opened it. The hearing had been moved forward by 12 days. Instead of nearly 3 weeks, they now had 6 days to prove the ranch was worth refinancing. Boone looked past him toward the green pasture. You wanted a faster answer, he said. Now you have one. He turned his horse and rode away. Ethan stared at the date on the document. 6 days. Clara stood beside him. "We have moisture records," she said. The surveyor confirmed the channel. "From it is not enough? Not for the bank? Then what will be?" She looked toward the old seep above the willows, a flow strong enough to reach the field without a storm. Ethan followed her gaze. They had proven that water remained beneath the ranch. Now they had 6 days to prove it could keep the ranch alive. Ethan and Clara began before sunrise. They had 6 days before the foreclosure hearing. And the small seep above the willows was their only chance to prove the ranch held more than temporary stormwater. Clara marked 3 shallow test points along the old gravel bed. Her plan was simple: clear the packed clay from the upper section, allow the trapped water to move into the buried channel, and measure the flow before changing anything else. Ethan studied the weak stream collecting in the first hole. "At this rate, it will take 6 days just to reach the pasture. Then we document 6 days of steady water," Clara said. "The court will not care about a wet hole. It may care about a connected watercourse confirmed by the surveyor. May care is not enough." Clara drove a wooden stake beside the seep and marked the water level. "If we open the bank too quickly, we lose control of the pressure. There is barely any pressure. You cannot see what is trapped behind the clay." Ethan said nothing, but the clock was already controlling his decisions. He had spent 2 years believing that returning with money would save the ranch. Now he had 6 days to prove that water hidden beneath the soil was worth more than the bank claimed. They worked carefully through the morning. Clara removed clay in thin layers while Ethan carried stone to reinforce the sides of the test channel. By noon, a narrow flow had begun moving through the gravel. They followed it downhill. The water reached the second test hole, collected briefly, then disappeared beneath another hard section of clay. "It is connected," Ethan said. "Yes, but it is blocked again." Restricted, not blocked? What is the difference? A restriction can slow water without stopping it. If we remove too much, the flow may cut its own path. Ethan looked toward the lower pasture. The grass had improved after the storm, but most of the field remained dry. 6 days was not enough time for slow moisture to change the ranch value. They opened a second narrow passage. By late afternoon, water had reached the third test hole. Clara measured the depth and wrote it in her notebook. Ethan watched the thin stream. "This will not convince Boone. We are not trying to convince Boone. The judge will see his numbers before seeing our field. Then our evidence must be accurate. Our evidence must be strong." Clara closed the notebook. "Strong evidence does not come from forcing the land to perform faster than it can." Ethan turned away. That evening, a letter arrived from town. The emergency appraisal request had been accepted, but the appraiser would not visit until the morning before the hearing. 5 days remained. The next day, the flow weakened. The first test hole still held water, but only a small amount moved downhill. Clara believed loose clay had settled into the channel overnight. "We clear it by hand," she said. Ethan looked at the old timber barrier. "There is water behind that wall. We are letting it escape 1 cup at a time. That wall is holding back more than water. It is holding loose soil and years of debris. We do not need to remove it. We widen the western opening. Not until we know the depth behind it. We do not have time to dig another series of holes." Clara stepped in front of him. "If you widen that cut, the pressure may tear through the gravel bed, and if we do nothing, Boone takes the ranch. He may take it faster if we destroy the field." Ethan dropped the shovel beside the barrier. "For 2 years you made every decision here because no one else was here. I am here now. That does not make the water obey you." The words struck him harder than she intended. Ethan picked up the shovel and walked away. For the rest of the morning, they worked separately. Clara cleared the lower channel. Ethan repaired the northern fence, but his attention remained fixed on the barrier. Shortly after midday, Clara rode back to the house to collect more measuring stakes. Ethan waited until she disappeared beyond the lower pasture. Then he returned to the timber wall. He told himself he would widen the opening by only a few inches. Enough to increase the flow, enough to show the appraiser moving water before the hearing. He removed 2 stones from the western edge and cut through the packed clay with the shovel. A thin stream appeared. Then the soil behind the cut collapsed. Water rushed through the opening, carrying gravel and dark mud. The narrow channel filled immediately. Ethan tried to replace one of the stones. But the force pushed it from his hands. The opening widened again. The flow moved downhill faster than before. At first, Ethan believed he had succeeded. Water crossed the upper gravel bed and reached the second test hole within minutes. Then the bank below it broke. The stream left the buried channel and cut into the dry surface soil. A shallow brown trench formed across the slope, heading toward the lower pasture. Ethan ran beside it, throwing stones into the cut. The water moved around them. Clara returned at a gallop. She dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. "What did you do?" I widened the opening. How much the bank gave way. Clara looked downhill and saw the growing trench. "Get the cattle out of the lower field. We can stop it here, not before it reaches them." Ethan ran toward the pasture while Clara returned to the barrier. He opened the western gate and drove the cattle toward higher ground. Several animals moved easily, but the injured cow resisted and turned back toward the green grass. By the time Ethan forced her through the gate, muddy water had reached the field. It did not create a flood, but it moved too quickly to soak into the soil. It tore through the edge of the green strip and carried loose earth toward the eastern ditch. Clara worked at the barrier, pushing branches and stones into the widened opening. Ethan returned and joined her. "Bring the heavy timber from the fence pile," she said. He dragged 2 cedar posts up the slope. Together they drove them across the opening and packed brush behind them. The flow weakened, but water continued leaking around the sides. Clara redirected part of it into the original eastern outlet. "We are sending it off the ranch again," Ethan said. "We are keeping it from stripping the pasture." They worked until sunset. When the water finally slowed, the damage was clear. A narrow gully crossed the upper slope. Part of the green strip had been buried under mud. One of the test holes had collapsed, and the controlled channel they had built over several days was gone. Ethan stood beside the ruined section. "How much did we lose?" 2 days of work. We have 4 left." Clara walked down to the pasture and lifted a handful of soil from the new cut. "The deeper layer is still here. We can repair it." Ethan followed her. "You warned me." "Yes. I thought a stronger flow would prove the land had value." "A strong flow proves nothing if the soil cannot hold it." He looked at the muddy channel. "I made the same mistake my grandfather made." "No, he tried to protect the ranch from a flood, and I tried to save it by creating one." Clara wiped the mud from her hands. You tried to make 6 days of proof appear in one afternoon." Ethan expected anger from her, but her voice remained controlled. That made the failure harder to accept. "What do we do now?" We reduce the opening again. Then we rebuild the channel wider and shallower. That will slow the water. That is the point. The appraiser arrives in 3 days. If the ground absorbs water instead of losing soil, he will see a functioning system, and if it does not recover, then we show him the moisture records, Mercer S report, and the surviving grass. Ethan looked toward the cattle standing behind the temporary fence. No more guesses. Clara met his eyes. No more rushing. They worked by lantern light. Ethan reset the stones at the barrier while Clara shaped a broad, shallow path below it instead of forcing water into one narrow trench. They spread the remaining flow across several small gravel channels. By midnight, the water had slowed to a steady trickle. It no longer carried mud. The next morning, the damaged field looked worse in daylight. The new gully remained visible, and brown sediment covered part of the grass. Then Clara knelt beside the lowest section and pushed the iron rod into the ground. It sank deeply. The water stayed beneath the surface," she said. Ethan tested another section. The soil was damp well beyond the visible stream. "So the failure taught us where the gravel spreads." Yes, he looked toward the repaired barrier. "Can we use that?" "We can place the next shallow channels along those lines." They spent the day rebuilding. Ethan followed Clara's measurements exactly. At each steep point they placed stones and brush to reduce the speed. At each flat section they widened the channel so the water could spread. By evening the seep was moving again. The flow was smaller than Ethan wanted, but it remained clear. It crossed the upper slope without cutting the soil, entered the green strip, and disappeared beneath the grass. Clara placed a tin cup at the end of the visible flow and timed how long it took to fill. "Not much," Ethan said. "Enough to measure. Will it be enough for the appraiser?" Clara looked toward the wet ground surrounding the channel. The water itself is not the proof. What is that the land keeps it? A rider appeared on the eastern road. Martin Vale stopped beside the fence and studied the muddy scar left by Ethan's mistake. He smiled before turning back toward town. "He saw the damage," Ethan said. "Boone will use it at the hearing. He will say we are destroying the ranch." Clara closed her notebook. Then the appraiser must arrive before Boone's version becomes the only one anyone hears. The following morning, a message came from town. The appraiser had canceled his visit. From Silas Boone had challenged the reassessment request, claiming F&S drainage work had artificially changed the property and made an accurate valuation impossible. 3 days remained before the hearing. Ethan read the message once, then crushed it in his hand. Clara looked toward the restored channel. "We cannot wait for the county now then. Who can value the ranch? Someone who understands what reliable pasture is worth." Ethan followed her gaze toward the cattle. "You mean a buyer? Not for the land, for the herd, for what the land can produce." The bank had blocked the appraisal. Their next proof would have to come from the market itself. Clara's plan was to bring in someone who understood pasture value better than the bank did. By noon, Walter had sent a message to Thomas Avery, a cattle buyer who supplied 2 towns north of the valley. Avery had purchased stock from the coal ranch years earlier, before the drought weakened the herd. He arrived the next morning. Avery was a broad man with a gray beard and a habit of examining everything before speaking. He walked through the herd, checked the cows' teeth, pressed his hands along their backs, and watched them graze. "They are lean," he said. "They survived 2 dry years," Ethan replied. That is not the same as being ready for market." Ethan's hope fell. Clara pointed toward the lower pasture. "Look at where they are feeding." Avery crossed the green strip and pulled several plants from the soil. He examined the roots, then pushed his boot into the ground. "This was dry clay last time I saw it. It still is outside the old channel," Ethan said. Avery looked toward the repaired water path. "And that changed it?" "We slowed the water and spread it through the buried gravel," Clara said. "How long has it been working?" "Parts of the field began recovering last season. The controlled channel is recent." Avery walked farther into the pasture. He studied the cattle again, this time watching how long they remained on the green ground and how evenly they grazed. "What do you want from me?" He asked. "A written estimate," Ethan said. "What the herd is worth now and what it could be worth if this pasture continues producing." Avery gave a short laugh. "You want me to value the future." "I want you to value evidence." Boone ignored. Avery looked at Clara. "And you believe this land can support the herd?" "Not at its old size, not yet." "But it can support 12 cattle through the growing season if we keep rotating them and protect the recovering ground." "You are certain?" "No, I am careful." Avery nodded slightly. He respected that answer more than certainty. They moved through the western pasture, where Clara had divided the grazing area into smaller sections. One field had been rested long enough for new grass to emerge. Another had been covered with old hay and manure to protect the soil. Avery stopped near the fence. "You did this without irrigation?" "With rainfall, runoff, and time," Clara said. "And the well?" "Still weak, so the ranch depends on the hidden channel. It depends on using every source of water properly." Avery remained silent for several minutes. Then he returned to his horse and removed a small writing case. "I can give you 2 things," he said, "a current offer for part of the herd and a conditional purchase agreement for next season." Ethan frowned. "What conditions?" "The lower pasture must continue improving. The cattle must gain weight, and you must show enough water to carry them through summer." "How much would the agreement be worth?" Avery named a figure. "It was not enough to pay the debt immediately." But it was enough to prove the ranch still had commercial value." Clara looked at Ethan. "This is what we need." Ethan was not convinced. "Boone will say it is only a promise." Avery closed the writing case. "Then sell me 4 cattle today." Ethan looked toward the herd. 4 animals would reduce grazing pressure and provide cash before the hearing, but it would also leave the ranch with fewer breeding cows. "Which 4?" he asked. Avery pointed to 2 older cows and 2 steers. "The cows are past their best breeding years. The steers will bring a fair price now. Keeping them through another dry season would cost more grass than they are worth." Clara agreed. Ethan did not answer immediately. Every animal represented years of work. Selling them felt like cutting away part of the ranch to save the rest. Avery saw the hesitation. "You can lose 4 cattle today," he said, "or let Boone take all 12 next week." Ethan signed. Avery counted the payment in front of Walter and wrote a separate statement confirming that the remaining herd was healthy, manageable, and supported by improving pasture. Before leaving, he added one final sentence. "If current land improvements continue, the coal ranch may again support profitable cattle production." It was not a guarantee, but it was the first outside judgment that directly contradicted Boone's claim. They spent the afternoon preparing the 4 animals for transport once they were gone. From the remaining cattle spread more evenly across the pasture. The field already looks less crowded, Ethan said. That is because it is, Clara replied. The land cannot recover if we keep demanding more than it can give. From Ethan looked at the money from the sale. Can we use this to stop the hearing? Not alone, it covers part of the overdue amount. Boone wants the ranch, not another small payment. From Ethan knew she was right. That evening, he rode into town with Avery's written estimate, the surveyor's report, and Clara's moisture records. The bank was still open. Silas Boone sat behind his desk while Martin Vale stood near the window. From Ethan placed the documents in front of them. The county surveyor confirmed the old channel, he said. Avery confirmed the herd has value. I sold 4 cattle and can make another payment today. From Boone did not touch the money. The foreclosure hearing remained scheduled. You claimed the ranch could no longer produce. It cannot produce enough. A cattle buyer disagrees. A buyer wants cattle. From that does not make him a land appraiser. Ethan pushed the conditional agreement across the desk. He is willing to contract for next season. Under conditions you may not meet. The ranch is improving. From Boone finally looked at the documents. For a moment, Ethan saw concern in his face. Then Boone set them aside. You altered the drainage after defaulting on the loan. You sold secured livestock without approval. From you are now presenting speculation as value. The cattle were mine to sell. They secure my debt. Ethan leaned over the desk. Your debt is the only reason you have not taken this land already. From you know it is worth more than you told the town. Boone's expression remained calm. You have no appraisal, no permanent water right, and no guarantee that one strip of green grass will survive summer. From I have proof the ranch is not dead. You have proof that it rained. Ethan placed Avery's payment on the desk. Take the money. Boone did not move if I accept this as a partial payment. From you gain another argument for delay. That is what you are afraid of. I am afraid of nothing, Mr. Cole. Then take it. Boone looked at Martin. Martin closed the bank ledger. From the office is no longer accepting payments on an account under active foreclosure, he said. Ethan understood. Boone had never intended to let him recover. The debt was no longer the real issue. From the land was. Ethan gathered the documents and returned the money to his coat. As he reached the door, Boone spoke. You should have accepted my offer when you returned. Ethan looked back. From you should have taken the ranch before Clara found the water. Boone's face hardened. That reaction told Ethan more than any answer could have. Outside, the town had begun to gather near the general store. From news of the hearing had spread. Some people looked at Ethan with pity. Others looked away. Walter waited with the wagon. Did he take the payment? He asked. No, Walter's expression darkened. Then he wants the property more than the money. Ethan climbed onto the seat. We need an appraisal. He cannot block. Walter considered that there is one man who might give it. Who? From Jonas Webb, Ethan knew the name. Webb had once worked as a county land assessor before resigning after a dispute with Boone. Where is he? Across the northern ridge, half a day away. From the hearing is in 2 days? Then you leave tonight. When Ethan returned to the ranch, Clara was checking the test holes. Water remained in 3 of them. He showed her Avery agreement and explained Boone's refusal. He expected the cattle sale, she said. How? He has watched every move we made, then we stopped proving the ranch to him. She looked at him. We prove it to the court. Ethan told her about Jonas Webb. Clara knew the name. My father trusted him. Why? Because Webb once found a spring on land Boone had declared dry. Ethan looked toward the northern road. That was enough. He prepared a fresh horse and packed the survey report. Avery's agreement and Clara's records. Before he left, Clara handed him the rounded creek stone they had uncovered beneath the barrier. What is this for? Webb will understand what it means. And if he refuses to come, show him the stone, then show him the dates. Ethan placed it in his saddlebag. He rode out before dark. Behind him, Clara remained beside the recovering pasture. Protecting the one piece of evidence Boone could not argue away. Ahead of him was the only man who might place a true value on the ranch before the court took it. Ethan reached Jonas Webb's property after midnight. The old assessor lived alone in a stone house beyond the northern ridge. A lantern appeared in the window before Ethan reached the porch. Webb opened the door holding a rifle. State your business. My name is Ethan Cole. Webb lowered the rifle slightly. I know the name your father once asked me to value his ranch. Then you know Silas Boone is trying to take it. That does not make your problem mine. The foreclosure hearing is tomorrow afternoon. Webb began closing the door. Ethan removed the rounded stone from his saddlebag. Clara Hayes told me to show you this. Webb stopped. He took the stone and examined its smooth surface. Where did you find it? Under the north flood barrier. How deep? About 2 feet beneath the clay. Was it alone? There is a whole gravel bed. It runs toward the lower pasture. Webb opened the door wider. Come inside. Ethan placed Mercer's report, Every's agreement, and Clara's moisture records on the table. Webb read them without speaking. He studied the dates first, then the measurements, then the surveyor's description of the buried channel. Who kept these records? He asked. Clara. Accurately? Every day. Webb looked at the cattle agreement. You sold 4 animals to reduce grazing pressure and raise cash. Boone refused the payment? Yes. That answer held his attention. A banker who refuses money usually wants something more valuable than the debt, Webb said. That is what Clara believes. And what do you believe? I believe. Boone knew the ranch held water before I returned. Webb leaned back. Your grandfather once asked the county to inspect that same ridge. Ethan stared at him. When, after the flood that killed part of his herd, he built the barrier before the assessment was completed. Did the report mention a creek? It mentioned an intermittent channel and shallow subsurface water. Why was it not on the county map? Because Boone's father challenged the report. Ethan stepped closer. Why would he care? The Boone family owned the land east of your ranch. They wanted the runoff directed toward their lower fields. The pieces came together. The barrier had protected the coal house from floods, but it had also sent water toward Boone property for decades. Do you still have that report? Ethan asked. No, county records were lost in a courthouse fire. Then we cannot prove it. I kept field notes. Webb crossed the room and opened a locked cabinet. Inside were old maps, ledgers, and rolled survey sheets. He found a narrow notebook and placed it on the table. The pages were faded, but the entry remained readable. Coal property, northern ridge, rounded gravel beneath clay, seasonal seep, probable historic drainage west to south. Diversion sends majority of surface runoff east. Ethan read it twice. This is enough to stop the foreclosure. No, Webb said. It is enough to demand questions. You were the county assessor. I resigned 18 years ago. Boone will call these private notes. Will you come to the hearing? Webb looked at the documents again. I will inspect the land first. We have to leave now. It is dark. The hearing is tomorrow. Webb closed the notebook. Then saddled the horses. They reached the coal ranch shortly after sunrise. Clara was waiting near the northern gate. She looked exhausted, but relieved when she recognized Webb. You found the gravel bed? He asked. Yes, and the seep still holding. She led them directly to the test holes. Water remained in 3, though no rain had fallen since the storm. Webb measured each one. He inspected the repaired channel, the old barrier, and the eastern drainage ditch. Then he walked the entire length of the green strip at several points. He dug beneath the clay and found the same rounded gravel. The channel is continuous, he said. Can you value it? Ethan asked. Not as a permanent stream. Ethan's hope weakened. Webb continued. But I can value what it does. He examined the grass density, the depth of the roots, and the moisture beyond the visible channel. He compared the green pasture with the dry ground outside it. This field is not recovering because of one storm, he said. The gravel spreads moisture beneath the surface. The work Clara did slows runoff long enough for the soil to absorb it. Is that enough to support cattle? Ethan asked. Not the old herd size, but with fewer animals and controlled grazing, it improves the ranch's productive value. Clara handed him her records from the previous year. Webb reviewed the cattle movements and pasture rest periods. You kept them off the recovering sections as much as possible. That is why the grass survived. He spent the rest of the morning measuring the usable pasture and estimating the herd capacity. He then inspected the well, the barn, and the stored feed. At noon, he sat at Ethan's kitchen table and wrote his valuation. The figure was nearly twice Boone's estimate. It was still less than the ranch had been worth before the drought, but high enough to support refinancing. Ethan looked at the number. Will the court accept this? Boone will challenge it. On what grounds? He will say, I am biased because we have disagreed before, are you? I dislike him. That does not change the measurements. Clara placed the old survey notes beside the new report. Would both together establish that the channel existed before our work? Yes. And that Boone's valuation ignored it? It establishes that his valuation treated the lower pasture as permanently dry. Ethan folded the documents. Then we have what we need. Webb did not answer. What? Ethan asked. The ranch may be worth enough to refinance. But you still need a lender. The court can delay the foreclosure. Perhaps it cannot force another bank to give you money. Ethan looked at Clara. A higher valuation gave them time. From not freedom. What lender would take the risk, he asked. Webb pointed to Avery's conditional agreement, one who sees future income. Avery is a cattle buyer. He works with the regional livestock cooperative. They sometimes finance small ranches when the cattle supply benefits their contracts. Ethan understood. If Avery confirms the agreement at the hearing, the cooperative might replace Boone's loan. If the judge grants time. A horse entered the yard. Walter stepped outside as the rider approached. The man handed him a sealed envelope and left without dismounting. Walter brought it into the kitchen. It is from the courthouse. Ethan opened it. Silas Boone had submitted a new claim. He alleged that Clara had occupied the ranch without legal authority, sold livestock, altered drainage, and used her own money to interfere with the bank's collateral. Boone was asking the judge to exclude all records created during Ethan's absence. He is trying to erase 2 years of evidence. Ethan said. Webb read the document. If the judge accepts this, Clara's measurements may be treated as unreliable. The surveyor confirmed them, only the current conditions. Clara remained calm. What would make my records admissible? Proof that Ethan authorized your management. He did not, he was gone. Walter looked toward the old desk. His father did. Everyone turned to him. Walter leaned on his cane. Before he died, Daniel Cole signed a standing ranch agreement. It allowed me to appoint someone to manage the herd if Ethan was absent and the property was at risk. Ethan stared at him. You never told me. I forgot it existed until Boone challenged her authority. Where is it? In the deed box. They opened the desk and searched through the old papers. Beneath several tax notices, Walter found a folded document bearing Daniel Cole's signature and a county witness seal. The agreement authorized Walter to arrange temporary care. Sell animals when necessary to prevent loss, and spend funds to protect the ranch until Ethan returned. Clara's work had not been unauthorized. It had been performed under Walter's legal appointment. Ethan placed the document beside Webb's valuation. Boone had tried to remove Clara's evidence. Instead, he had forced them to find the paper that made her actions legitimate. Webb gathered the reports. We leave for town within the hour. Clara looked at the channel through the kitchen window. I should stay with the cattle. No, Ethan said. Boone built his case around claiming you had no right to act. You need to be there when we prove otherwise? She looked at him. Are you certain for 2 years you stood here when I could not? He picked up the ledger. Now you stand beside me. They left the ranch together. For the first time since Ethan returned, they were not going to the bank to ask for mercy. They were going to court with proof. The courthouse was already crowded when Ethan, Clara, Walter, and Jonas Webb arrived. News of the foreclosure had spread through the valley, and several ranchers had come to watch. Silas Boone stood near the front with Martin Vale and a lawyer from the county seat. He looked calm, but his attention remained fixed on the papers Ethan carried. Judge Elias Ward entered and called the hearing to order. Bonus lawyer spoke first. The bank has waited beyond the original deadline. The debt remains unpaid. The property has declined in value, and the ranch has been altered by a woman who had no ownership or legal authority. He presented Boone's valuation. Photographs of the dry eastern pasture and statements claiming the herd had been close to starvation during the previous winter. The bank is not asking for punishment, he continued. It is asking to recover lawful collateral before further damage occurs. Judge Ward looked at Ethan. Do you dispute the debt? No, Ethan said. Can you pay it today? Not in full. A quiet murmur moved through the room. Boone's lawyer closed his file as if the case had already ended. Ethan placed a various cattle agreement on the table. I can make a substantial payment. The ranch also has enough value to support refinancing. The bank disputes that, the lawyer said. That is why we brought evidence. Jonas Webb was called first. He explained his experience as a former county assessor and presented his new valuation. Boone's lawyer stood Mr. Webb. Did you not leave county service after a disagreement with Mr. Boone? I resigned after he pressured the office to approve a valuation I considered inaccurate. So you hold a personal grievance. I hold measurements. Webb described the buried gravel channel, the persistent moisture, the improving pasture, and the reduced herd size. He explained that the ranch could not support the number of cattle it once had, but it was not worthless. What value did you assign the property? Judge Ward asked. Webb gave the figure. It was nearly twice Boone's estimate. Boone's lawyer immediately challenged it. There is no recorded creek, no established water right, and no guarantee the pasture will remain green. I did not value a creek, Webb replied. I valued usable soil, current forage, verified moisture, livestock capacity, and existing infrastructure. He then produced his old field notes. From these observations were made years before Clara Hayes changed anything. They described the same gravel bed and the same shallow water pattern. Boona's face tightened. His lawyer examined the notebook. These are private notes, not an official report. They are dated observations from an official field inspection, but the original county file no longer exists. That does not make the land disappear. Judge Ward accepted the notebook as supporting evidence, not final proof. Clara was called next. Boone's lawyer approached her slowly. You lived on the coal ranch without the owner's permission. Ethan was away. Walter appointed me to manage it. You sold livestock. 3 animals, 1 was injured, 2 were unlikely to survive winter. You altered the drainage. I slowed runoff in small channels and protected the lower pasture. You spent your own money on the ranch. Yes, why, to keep the cattle alive or to create a claim on the property? No, you expected repayment. I kept records because the money was not mine to hide. The lawyer held up her ledger. These measurements were made by you alone. Many were. You are not a surveyor? No, you are not an appraiser? No, you are not an engineer. No, then why should this court trust your conclusions? Clara looked directly at the judge. It should not trust my title. I do not have one. It should compare my records with what the surveyor measured, what Mr. Webb found, and what the cattle buyer confirmed. The room became silent. Judge recorded rainfall, soil moisture, cattle movement, expenses, and pasture use for almost 2 years? Yes. Why so much detail? Because the ranch was failing, and I needed to know which decisions helped and which ones caused more damage. Boona's lawyer pointed toward the document concerning her authority. This agreement was signed by Ethan Cola's father, not Ethan. Walter stood before he was called. It authorized me to appoint temporary management if Ethan was absent. The judge examined the paper. The county witness seal was still visible. Did you appoint Clara Hayes? He asked. Yes, when? 5 weeks after I injured my hip. Did she act under your direction at first? Later. She did more than I was able to supervise. Did she keep you informed every week? The judge placed the agreement beside Clara's ledger. Her management was authorized. Bone's lawyer objected. But the judge rejected it. The records would remain part of the hearing. Ethan was called last. Boone's lawyer faced him. You admit the debt remains unpaid. Yes. You admit the ranch cannot support its former herd. Yes. You admit recent drainage work caused erosion. Yes. Clara looked at him, but Ethan did not avoid the question. I widened the channel against Clara's advice, he continued. The flow cut the slope. We repaired it and changed the design. The lawyer paused. He had expected denial. So you damaged the property. I made a mistake, and this court should delay foreclosure because you corrected one mistake? No, it should delay foreclosure because the bank undervalued the ranch and refused a valid partial payment. Ethan placed the money from the cattle sale on the table. I offered this to Boone before the hearing. He refused it. Judge Ward turned toward Boone. Did the bank refuse payment? Boone answered carefully. The account was already under active foreclosure. That was not my question. Yes. Why? Boone's lawyer stepped forward to avoid creating confusion regarding the legal status of the debt. The judge looked unconvinced. Ethan placed Avery's conditional agreement beside the money. A buyer has committed to purchase cattle next season. If we maintain the pasture, the ranch has present income and future income. We are asking for time to refinance, not forgiveness. Judge Ward studied the documents. How much time? 30 days. Boone's lawyer objected immediately. The bank has already waited 2 years while accepting interest payments from Clara Hayes. Ethan said. The judge raised one hand. He reviewed the survey report, Webb's valuation, Clara's records, Avery's agreement, and the management authorization. Then he spoke. The court finds that the debt is valid. It also finds that the bank's valuation may not reflect the present condition of the property. Boone's expression hardened. The foreclosure is delayed for 15 days. Ethan had asked for 30. But 15 was still time. Judge Ward continued. During that period, Ethan Cole may seek refinancing. The bank must accept lawful partial payment and may not remove livestock without a separate order. Boone's lawyer stood. We request immediate appeal. You may file one. The gavel struck. The hearing was over. People began talking. Walter gripped Ethan's shoulder. Clara remained still. Looking at the money on the table. We did not win, she said. No, Ethan replied, but the ranch still belongs to us for 15 days. Jonas Webb joined them. That is enough time only if Avery's cooperative agrees to review the loan quickly. From we go today, Ethan said. A court clerk approached and handed Boone a copy of the order. Boone read it, then walked toward Ethan. You think 15 days changes anything? It changes today. From the cooperative will see the same risk I saw. They may also see the water. Boone lowered his voice. You should ask yourself why my family wanted that land before your father was born. From Ethan studied him. Because the runoff crossed it? Boone's eyes shifted briefly toward Webb's old notebook. That was enough. There is more than runoff, Ethan said. Boone stepped closer. From be careful what you dig for. Then he turned and left. Clara had heard every word. What did he mean? Ethan asked. I do not know. Webb opened his old notebook again. There was one line I did not understand when I inspected the ridge years ago. From he pointed to a faded note beneath the drainage sketch. Stone-lined intake, older than coal barrier, direction unknown. Ethan looked at Clara. A built channel? Possibly, Webb said. From something was moving water before your grandfather built the wall. Clara closed the notebook. If Boone knows where it leads, that may be why he wanted the ranch before we found the seep. From they had delayed the foreclosure, but the hearing had revealed a deeper problem. The hidden water system might not end in the lower pasture, and Silas Boone may have known that from the beginning. From the courthouse was crowded when Ethan, Clara, Walter, and Jonas Webb arrived. Silas Boone sat at the front beside Martin Vale, and his lawyer on Boone's table lay photographs of the driest parts of the ranch. From the unpaid loan papers and statements claiming the cattle had nearly starved. Elias Ward opened the hearing. Boone's lawyer stood first. The debt is overdue. The ranch has declined in value. From and unauthorized changes have been made to the land. The bank requests immediate foreclosure before its collateral suffers further damage. Judge Ward looked at Ethan. Do you dispute the debt? From no. Can you pay it in full today? No, Boone leaned back, certain the answer had settled the case. Ethan placed 3 documents before the judge. I can make a partial payment. I also have evidence that the ranch is worth more than the bank claims. From Jonas Webb testified first. He presented his inspection of the property, including the buried gravel channel, the persistent moisture beneath the lower pasture, and the land's improved ability to support cattle. From what value did you assign the ranch? The judge asked. Webb gave a figure nearly twice Boone's valuation. Boone's lawyer rose immediately. You have disagreed with Mr. Boone before. From, have you not? Yes. So your opinion may be influenced by personal conflict. My opinion is based on measurements. Webb handed the judge his old field notebook. These notes were made years before Clara Hayes began working on the ranch. From, they described the same gravel bed, the same shallow seep, and the same historic water route. Boone's lawyer examined the notebook. This is not an official county report. No, Webb said. From the official record was lost, the land was not. Judge Ward accepted the notebook as supporting evidence. Clara was called next. Boone's lawyer approached her. You lived on the ranch without Ethan Cole's permission. From Walter Reed appointed me to care for it. You sold cattle. 3 animals. 1 was injured, and 2 were too weak to survive winter. You altered the drainage. I slowed runoff inside the property. From, you are not a surveyor, engineer, or appraiser. No, then why should the court trust your records? Clara placed her ledger before the judge. It should compare them with the surveyor's measurements. From Mr. Webb inspection and the condition of the cattle, the ledger contained 2 years of rainfall records, cattle counts, pasture rotations, expenses, soil observations, and bank payments. From Judge Ward turned several pages. You recorded this every day? When conditions changed, yes. Why? Because the ranch was failing, and guessing was not keeping it alive. Boone's lawyer pointed at her. From, she had no legal authority to manage the property. Walter stood and handed the court a document signed by Ethan's father. It authorized Walter to appoint temporary management if Ethan was absent and the ranch faced immediate loss. From, Judge Ward examined the seal. Did you appoint Clara Hayes? Yes, Walter said. Did she act on your behalf? Yes, the judge placed the agreement beside Clara's ledger. Her management was authorized. From, the records remain admissible. Boone's lawyer changed direction. He called Ethan. You admit that widening the northern channel caused erosion. Yes, you damaged your own land days before this hearing. From, I made a wrong cut. Clara stopped the flow and we rebuilt the channel, so the work is unstable. The mistake was mine. The recovery was measurable. Ethan placed Mercer's county report on the table. From, the controlled channel caused no damage beyond the ranch. The lower pasture retained water, and the old watercourse existed before our work. The lawyer lifted Avery's cattle agreement. From this contract depends on future conditions that may never occur. It also proves a buyer believes the ranch can produce again, Ethan said. A belief is not payment. Ethan placed the money from the cattle sale beside the agreement. From this is payment, Boone refused it. Judge Ward turned toward the banker. Did the bank refuse a lawful, partial payment? Boone answered carefully. The account was already under foreclosure. From that does not answer my question? Yes. Why? To protect the bank's legal position. Ethan looked at the judge. He does not want the debt paid. He wants the land taken before it can be reassessed. From Boone's lawyer objected, but Judge Ward allowed Ethan to continue. The bank called the ranch worthless, while offering to buy it for more than the debt. Boone paid Clara to leave after learning she had found the buried channel. Then he refused money that would reduce what I owed. Boone stood. I offered a practical settlement on failing land. Why were you afraid of her digging? The room fell silent. Boone did not answer. Judge Ward reviewed the evidence: Mercer's drainage report, Webb's valuation, Clara's records, Walter's authorization, a various contract, and the refused payment. Finally he spoke. The debt is valid, however. The court finds that the bank's valuation may not reflect the current productive value of the property. Boone's expression hardened. The foreclosure is suspended for 15 days. During that period, Ethan may seek refinancing. The bank must accept lawful payment and may not seize livestock without a separate court order. The gavel struck. Boone's lawyer immediately began gathering papers. Ethan looked at Clara. We have 15 days to replace the entire loan, she said. It is more than we had this morning. Boone stopped beside Ethan on his way out. No lender will risk money on a wet strip of grass. Then why do you want it so badly? Boone lowered his voice. You still think the water beneath that ranch ends in your pasture? Ethan stared at him. What does that mean? Boone glanced at Webb's old notebook, then walked away. Webb opened the notebook again and pointed to a faded entry beneath the original drainage sketch. Stone-lined intake. Older than the coal flood barrier, direction unknown. Clara read the note. A man-made water channel? Possibly, Webb said. Ethan looked toward the courthouse door through which Boone had disappeared. Boone had spent years calling the ranch worthless, but his final warning suggested he knew exactly where the buried water went. The court had given Ethan 15 days to save the ranch. To do it, they would have to find what Silas Boone had been trying to reach first. Ethan, Clara, Walter, and Jonas Webb returned to the ranch before sunset. They had 15 days to replace Boone's loan. But first they needed to understand the stone-lined intake mentioned in Webb's old notes. Webb spread the county map across the kitchen table. The flood barrier was built later. He said, this intake predates it. That means someone was controlling water here before your grandfather redirected the runoff. Clara placed her finger on the northern ridge. If the intake begins near the seep, it may follow the buried gravel bed or leave it, Webb said. A stone-lined channel would have been built to carry water somewhere specific. Ethan looked toward Boone's property east of the ranch. His family's fields, possibly. At first light they returned to the northern ridge. Clara led them to the place where the gravel bed curved beneath the willows. Webb compared the ground with his old sketch, while Ethan cleared brush from the bank. They found the first cut stone less than an hour later. It was flat, squared at the edges, and buried beneath roots. 2 more stones formed a narrow wall beside it. This is not part of the natural creek bed. Clara said. Webb knelt beside the stones. It is the intake. They followed the structure east. In some places, only a single line of stone remained. In others, the channel was covered by clay and thornbrush. It ran parallel to the old drainage ditch, but slightly uphill from it. By midday, they reached the eastern boundary. The stone channel did not stop at the coal fence. It continued on to Boone's land. Ethan stood beside the boundary marker. So his family has been using water from this ranch. Webb examined the slope. Not continuously. The channel only receives water when the seep rises or the ridge collects runoff. But the barrier increased the flow east. Yes, Clara looked back toward the lower pasture. Your grandfather built the flood wall to protect the ranch. Boone's family benefited because the wall sent more water into this channel. And when our pasture dried, Ethan said, their lower fields stayed green. Webb nodded. That may explain why Boone never wanted the old route restored. They crossed no boundary. Instead, they followed the fence south until they could see Boone's nearest field. A shallow pond lay beyond the trees. Even after several dry seasons, water remained in it. Ethan had seen that pond many times. but he had always assumed it was fed by a well. Clara studied the ground between the stone channel and the pond. The slope connects them. "We need proof," Ethan said. "We need access." Webb replied, "Boone will never allow us to inspect his land." "Then we stay on yours." They returned to the buried intake and began clearing only the section inside the coal property. Their goal was not to redirect the water yet. It was to measure where the flow entered the stone channel. Clara poured a bucket of water into the exposed gravel near the seep. Most of it spread slowly toward the lower pasture. A smaller portion vanished beneath the eastern stonework. Webb checked the first opening. Farther down the line, the water appeared there several minutes later. "The channel still functions," he said. Ethan looked toward Boone's land. "He knew he may have known the direction," Clara said. "That does not prove he knew the source remained active." "He paid you to leave after you found the gravel. That proves suspicion." "We need more than suspicion." Walter, who had remained near the wagon, called to them. He held a rusted iron plate found beneath loose stones beside the intake. A name had been stamped into it. "Boone Agricultural Company." Ethan wiped away the dirt. "How old is this?" Webb examined the lettering. 40 years, perhaps more. Older than Silas Boone S. Bank. But not older than his family's land company. The plate had likely covered a control gate or inspection opening. Its presence tied the stone channel directly to the Boone family. Ethan placed it in the wagon. "This goes before the court. It proves ownership of part of the structure," Webb said. "It does not prove theft. Then what does?" "A record showing the water source began on coal land." Clara looked at Walter. Would Daniel Cole have kept old ranch papers? Everything he considered important went into the loft above the barn. They searched until evening. Most of the loft contained broken tools, feed receipts and old cattle records. Near the rear wall, Ethan found a wooden box marked with his grandfather's initials. Inside were letters, tax documents, and a folded agreement between the Cole family and Boone Agricultural Company. Ethan read it aloud. The agreement allowed the Boone Company to maintain a seasonal water channel across the eastern edge of the Cole Ranch. In return, the Cole family was supposed to receive payment each year. Walter checked the final page. "The agreement expired 26 years ago." "Did Boone keep using the channel?" Ethan asked. "Your father may not have known it existed." Webb took the document. There is no renewal." Clara examined the payment section. There are no records of payment after the first 5 years. Ethan understood the value of what they had found. Boone's family had once paid for access to water crossing the ranch. The agreement had expired, but the channel still carried runoff toward Boone's pond. "That is why he wanted the property," Ethan said. "If he owned the ranch, no one could challenge the water route." And no one could close it," Clara added. Webb folded the agreement carefully. "This changes the negotiation. Boone will deny the channel still supplies his pond. Then we measure the flow." The following morning, Clara placed marked stakes beside the seep, the stone intake, and the eastern outlet. Webb recorded the water depth while Ethan cleared debris from the channel. They did not block the flow. They only opened enough of the old structure to observe it. Within hours, a steady trickle entered the stone channel and moved east at the same time. The lower pasture continued receiving water through Clara's shallow cuts. The ranch was capable of supporting both routes. The problem was that Boone had benefited from one without paying for it. Near noon, Martinvale appeared at the eastern fence. He saw the exposed stonework and the iron plate lying in the wagon. His face changed. "Mr. Boone demands that you stop disturbing the channel." Ethan walked toward him. "Why would he care about a channel on my land? It may affect downstream water his pond." Martin did not answer. Ethan held up the expired agreement. "Tell Boone I found the contract." Martin looked at the paper, then turned his horse immediately. "He will be back," Clara said. "He should be." Boone arrived before sunset with his lawyer and 2 riders. He stopped at the boundary but did not enter. "You are interfering with an established drainage route," he said. "The agreement allowing that route expired 26 years ago," Ethan replied. Boone looked at the document in his hand. That channel predates both of us, and your family paid mine to use it. The agreement is no longer relevant, then neither is your access." Lawyers stepped forward. "You cannot obstruct water in a way that damages neighboring property." "We have obstructed nothing," Webb said. "We have measured a structure beginning on coal land and continuing toward Boone property." Boone's eyes moved to Webb. "You have no authority here." "No. But I know what I measured." Ethan held up the iron plate. "This belonged to your family's company. Boone remained silent. Clara spoke. You knew the channel was there. That is why you tried to remove me after I found the creek stones. From Boone looked at her, you found damp soil and built a fantasy around it. Then why did you come before we touched your land? Again, Boone gave no answer. Ethan stepped closer to the fence. From you refused my payment because you wanted the ranch before I discovered that your pond depends on water crossing it. My pond does not depend on you. Then you will not object when we request a formal water inspection. From that finally broke Boone's calm expression. A county inspection could take months. We have 15 days and no lender will wait for the result. Ethan showed him Webb's new valuation. From a lender may not need to wait once it sees the expired agreement and the value of controlled water access. Boone studied the papers. What do you want? The question confirmed everything. From Ethan did not answer immediately. He looked at Clara. For 2 years, Boone had treated the ranch as a failed property. Now he was asking for terms you accept the cattle sale payment. From, Ethan said, you suspend all foreclosure action for 60 days. You also pay for continued use of the Eastern Channel. Boone laughed once. You are in no position to demand anything. From then we close nothing, change nothing, and take every document to the court and the regional cooperative. Boone's lawyer leaned toward him and spoke quietly. The banker looked toward the stone channel. From then toward the pond hidden beyond his field. I will give you 30 days, he said, 60-45, and the water use payment. That requires a separate agreement signed before the foreclosure resumes. From Boone's jaw tightened. You believe this saves the ranch? No, Ethan said. It gives us time to save it ourselves. Boone turned his horse. You will receive the papers tomorrow after he left. From Walter released a long breath. He will try to change the terms. That is why Webb heard every word, Ethan said. Webb nodded, and why we still go to the cooperative. Clara looked toward the lower pasture. From they had not found a hidden river or a miracle spring. They had found something more useful. Proof that the water everyone ignored had been valuable enough for the Boone family to control for decades. From the ranch was no longer only land securing a debt, it controlled the route feeding Boone's pond. For the first time, Silas Boone needed Ethan more than Ethan needed him. From the Regional Livestock Cooperative sent 2 representatives to inspect the ranch the next morning. Thomas Avery came with them. Ethan met the group at the gate with Clara, Webb, From, and Walter. On the table inside the kitchen were the documents they had gathered. Webb's valuation, Mercer's drainage report, a various cattle agreement, Clara's records, the expired water use contract. From and Boone's promise to delay foreclosure. The cooperative's senior representative, Martha Hale, read every document before walking the property. She inspected the remaining herd first. From the cattle were lean but stable. Their eyes were clear, their movement was strong, and the smaller herd no longer crowded the pasture. You reduced the number on purpose? She asked. From, yes, Ethan said. The land could not recover under the old pressure. Avery confirmed the sale and the conditional agreement. They moved next to the lower pasture. Clara showed Hale the buried gravel line. From the shallow channels and the moisture records. She explained how the cattle had first revealed the damp ground and how the old flood barrier had redirected water away from the field. From Hale pushed a rod into the green strip, it sank deeply. Then she tested the dry clay several yards away. The contrast was clear. How much of this field can recover? Hale asked. From, not all at once, Clara said, but enough to support the reduced herd if we protect each section and move the cattle before they graze it down. You are not promising full recovery. From, no. Hale looked at her. That helps. They continued toward the northern ridge. Webb showed her the old channel and the stone-lined intake. Ethan produced the expired agreement connecting the Boone Company to the eastern water route. From Hale read the final page. So Boone's land has benefited from water crossing this property for decades, Ethan said. Has he agreed to pay for it? Not yet, but he agreed to negotiate before restarting foreclosure. From Hale folded the document. That water agreement may generate income, but I will not approve a loan based on income that does not exist. Yet Ethan expected that, then base it on the cattle. From the cattle alone do not cover the risk. Then the pasture. The pasture is improving, but it remains vulnerable. Ethan looked toward the ranch. What would make the loan possible? From Hale answered directly. A smaller debt, verified income, and a management plan that does not depend on one wet season. Ethan placed the cattle sale money on the table. This reduces the debt. From Avery placed the signed purchase agreement beside it. This verifies future income if the ranch meets the conditions. Clara opened her ledger to the new pasture plan. We keep only 8 breeding animals through the next season. From the western field rests first. The lower field is divided into 3 sections. No cattle return to a section until the grass reaches the marked height. Hale studied the plan, and if rainfall fails, we reduce the herd again before the pasture is damaged, Clara said. Ethan looked at her. The answer was difficult, but it was correct. The ranch could not be saved by refusing every loss. It had to survive by protecting what remained. Hale returned to the kitchen and began calculating. No one spoke while she worked. Finally, she closed the ledger. The cooperative will refinance the ranch under 3 conditions. Ethan waited. First, the cattle sale money is applied immediately to the principal. Second, Avery's contract becomes part of the loan agreement. Third, Clara Hayes remains the recorded ranch manager for at least 1 year. Ethan looked at Clara. She said nothing. Hale continued, the cooperative is not lending against Ethan's return. It is lending against the management that kept the ranch alive. Ethan nodded. She stays? Clara looked at him. You should decide that. After hearing the rest, Hale placed the proposed loan terms on the table. The interest was lower than Boone's. But the payment schedule was strict. If the ranch misses 2 payments, she said, the cooperative takes control of the herd. Not the land? Ethan asked. The land remains collateral. But we would rather preserve production than destroy it. That difference mattered. Boone had treated the ranch as something to seize. The cooperative treated it as something that had to keep working. Ethan signed first. Clara signed as ranch manager's buyer. Hale added the cooperative seal. The ranch now had a new lender. They rode into town that afternoon. Silas Boone was in his office when Ethan entered with Hale and Webb. Martinvale stood near the bank ledger. Ethan placed the cooperative draft on Boone's desk. This pays the remaining debt. Boone did not touch it. You accepted another loan with better terms. You are replacing one debt with another. I am replacing a lender who wanted the land with one that wants the ranch to succeed. Hale handed Boone the formal transfer papers. The cooperative is prepared to settle the account today. Boone read the amount. He could no longer refuse without openly admitting that the ranch, not the money, had been his real objective. Martin opened the account ledger. Boone remained still for several seconds. Then he signed the release. The coal ranch debt was transferred. Ethan watched Boone stamp the final page. 2 years of fear ended with one sound. The seal struck the paper. Boone pushed the documents across the desk. You still owe more than the ranch produced last year. That is why we changed how it is managed. The seep may fail. Then we reduce the herd. The pasture may dry. Then we protect the soil before we protect our pride. Boone looked at Clara. You taught him that? No, she said. The land did. Hale gathered the signed release. There is one matter left, she said. She placed the expired water use agreement before Boone. The cooperative now holds an interest in the coal property. Any continued use of the Eastern Channel requires a new contract. Boone's expression hardened. You came here to settle a loan. And to protect the property, securing ours. Webb presented his measurements showing the old channel feeding east toward Boone's Pond. Boone knew he could challenge the evidence. But doing so would bring county inspectors onto both properties. What are the terms? He asked. Ethan placed a short agreement on the desk. Boone would pay an annual fee for continued access to seasonal runoff crossing the coal ranch. He would also share the cost of repairing the old barrier and maintaining a controlled outlet. The amount was not large, but it created reliable income. More importantly, it forced Boone to acknowledge that the ranch controlled something valuable. Boone read the agreement. You are charging me for rain? No, Ethan said. For the channel your family used after the old agreement expired? Boone looked toward Hale. She waited without speaking. At last he signed. The ranch now had 3 sources of support: cattle income, controlled pasture recovery, and payment for the eastern water route. When Ethan stepped outside the bank, several people were waiting near the street. They had heard the cooperative representatives were in town. Walter stood beside the wagon. Well? He asked. Ethan handed him the released loan papers. Walter read the first page and smiled. The ranch is yours. Ethan looked toward Clara. No, he said. The ranch belongs to the work now. They returned home before sunset. The cattle were grazing in the lower field. The repaired channel carried a clear, narrow flow beneath the grass. The water was not deep enough to impress anyone passing by, but it stayed. Ethan stood beside Clara near the first test hole. For 2 years, I thought I had to earn enough money to come back and rescue this place. You did come back with money, not enough. No, he looked across the pasture. You saved it before I arrived. Clara shook her head. I delayed the loss. That delay was everything. She closed the ledger. The loan saves the ranch from Boone. It does not save it from the next dry year. Then we begin preparing tomorrow. We begin now. They walked toward the western pasture to move the cattle before nightfall. Behind them, the hidden channel continued, carrying water through the land everyone had once believed was dead. 6 weeks after the cooperative replaced Boone's loan, the lower pasture no longer looked like a narrow accident of green. New grass had spread outward from the buried gravel bed. Covering ground that had remained bare for years, the restored channel still carried only a modest flow. But Clara's shallow cuts slowed each storm long enough for moisture to spread beneath the soil instead of rushing into the eastern ditch. The ranch was not fully recovered. Large sections remained dry, and the herd was smaller than when Ethan had left. But the cattle gained weight steadily, the well level stopped falling. And the resting western pasture produced its first strong growth in 3 seasons. Clara continued measuring everything. She recorded water depth, grass height, cattle weight, and the number of days each section rested between grazing periods. Ethan followed the plan without trying to force faster results. When one field weakened, they moved the cattle. When forage became thin, they sold another steer rather than allow the herd to strip the soil. By midsummer, Thomas Avery returned to inspect the animals covered by his purchase agreement. He walked through the herd, examined their backs and ribs, then compared their condition with the notes from his first visit. They have gained more than I expected, he said. The grass recovered faster after we reduced the herd. Ethan replied. Avery looked toward Clara, and because someone knew when to move them, Clara closed her ledger. The field told us when. Avery confirmed the next cattle purchase and offered a higher price than the original agreement required. The payment covered the ranch's first cooperative installment with money left for fencing and winter feed. Word spread quickly. The same men who had once called Clara's channels useless began riding out to see the pasture. Some came because their own fields were drying. Others came because they wanted to understand how a ranch Boone had declared dead was producing cattle again. Clara showed them the system without exaggerating what it could do. You cannot create water that is not there, she told them. You can only stop wasting what arrives. She explained that stone and brush could slow runoff, that bare soil lost moisture faster than covered ground. And that cattle had to leave a pasture before they ate it down to the roots. Some ranchers listened, others wanted a faster answer. How long before dead ground turns green? One man asked. That depends on the soil, rain, slope, and damage already done. Can I double my herd after 1 season? No, then what is the advantage? Clara pointed toward Ethan's cattle. They are still here. That answer ended the discussion. A month later, Henry Mercer returned with the county assessor. They measured the restored pasture, reviewed the cooperative contract, and examined the signed agreement granting Boone continued access to the eastern channel. The official reassessment valued the coal ranch above even Jonas Webb's estimate. The land was no longer classified as failing dry pasture. The report recognized its improving forage, managed drainage, commercial cattle contract, and income from seasonal water access. Silas Boone filed an objection. It was rejected. The county records that had once supported his low valuation now proved the ranch was worth far more than he had claimed. Ethan received the final report on a Saturday morning. He read it at the kitchen table while Clara prepared to move the cattle. We should frame this, he said. It is paper Boone cannot ignore. The grass matters more to you. Perhaps, to the cattle too. Ethan folded the report and placed it inside the ledger. That afternoon, they rode into town for supplies. Outside the general store, several ranchers were gathered around a notice posted beside the door. The county had approved a program to inspect old drainage structures throughout the valley. Too many fields had suffered erosion during storms and dried too quickly afterward. Mercer had recommended studying the work done on the coal ranch as one practical example. Walter read the notice and smiled. 2 months ago, they called those channels scratches in the dirt. Now they want to measure them, Ethan said. Clara loaded sacks of salt into the wagon, let them measure. A carriage stopped across the street. Boone stepped down alone. The conversations outside the store became quiet. He approached Ethan, but looked first at Clara. The eastern pond is lower, Boone said. We have not closed your channel, Ethan replied. I know then, what do you want? The old outlet is losing water before it reaches my property. From Mercer believes part of the bank has collapsed. You signed an agreement to share maintenance costs. I remember what I signed, then send your portion of the repair money to the cooperative. From Boone's jaw tightened. I came to discuss the work directly with me, Ethan asked. Boone looked at Clara again. With her, the men near the store watched in silence for 2 years. Boone had called Clara an intruder, dismissed her records, and tried to pay her to leave. Now his pawn depended on the same knowledge he had mocked. Clara remained beside the wagon. What have you observed? She asked. The pond rises after storms, but falls within days. The eastern channel remains wet near the boundary. Then the leak is probably between the boundary and the pond. Can you inspect it? Not without permission to enter your property. You have it and access to the original channel records. Boone hesitated. If they still exist, you will see them. Those are my terms. Boone looked toward the people watching from the store. Refusing would reveal that he still had something to hide. Tomorrow morning, he said. Clara nodded. Boone turned to leave. Ethan stopped him. There is one more condition. Boone faced him. Clara is not working for free. A brief expression of anger crossed the banker's face. What is her fee? Clara named a fair daily amount, no more than the work required. Boone agreed and returned to his carriage. Only after he left did the conversations around the store resume. Walter leaned toward Ethan. I wish your father had lived to see that, so do I. One of the younger ranchers approached Clara. Did Boone truly ask you to repair his water? He asked me to inspect a channel. That sounds close enough. By the following week, Clara had identified the problem on Boone's land. A section of the old stone channel had collapsed beneath a wagon crossing, sending water into a deep patch of clay before it could reach the pond. She did not rebuild the entire route. She opened a narrow bypass, reinforced it with stone, and required Boone's workers to complete the labor. The pond began rising after the next storm. Boone paid her fee. He also paid the first annual water access installment to the coal ranch. Ethan used part of that money to build a protected drinking point for the cattle so they no longer damaged the wettest section of pasture. The rest went into an emergency fund for the next dry season. By autumn, the ranch made its second cooperative payment without selling breeding stock. Avery purchased 2 steers at the improved price. Mercer brought visitors from neighboring counties to examine the drainage work. Walter moved slowly through the pasture on horseback for the first time since his injury from the ridge. The transformation was clear. The ranch was still marked by dry years, bare patches remained, and the old erosion lines had not vanished. But green pasture now followed the land's natural shape. Water no longer cut one violent path through the field. It spread, slowed, and disappeared beneath living roots. Ethan stood near the old flood barrier while Clara checked the repaired spillway. Boone once told everyone this ranch would be empty before I returned, he said. He was nearly right. You do not allow a man much room to enjoy victory. We have not defeated drought. No, but we defeated him. Clara looked toward Boone as distant pond. Boone lost control of the ranch. That is different, Ethan considered her words. For 2 years, he had imagined saving the property as a single dramatic act. He would return with enough money, pay the debt, and restore everything his father had lost. Nothing had happened that way. The money had been insufficient. The water had not appeared as a powerful spring. The pasture had not recovered overnight. The ranch survived because Clara made hundreds of small decisions while no one was watching. You should put your name on the management records. Ethan said. It is already there, I mean officially. Cole and Hayes Ranch. Clara stopped working. This land belongs to your family, the debt to the cooperative, the cattle belong partly to the work. And half the valley now follows your measurements. The name is the least important part, then leave it alone. Why? Her expression closed. Because I did not save this ranch to own it. Ethan waited, but she returned to the spillway. That evening, the town held its annual harvest gathering beside the church. Avery announced the new cattle contract publicly, and Mercer spoke about the county drainage project. When someone asked Ethan how he had revived land everyone believed was lost, he stood before the crowd and gave the only honest answer. I did not. The people became quiet. Returned with money that could not cover the debt and plans that nearly damaged the field. Clara Hayes kept the cattle alive, found the buried channel, recorded what the land was doing. And refused to leave when Boone offered to repay everything she had spent. He looked toward Clara at the edge of the crowd. I came home owning the ranch. She was the reason there was still a ranch to own. From applause began slowly, then spread through the gathering. Clara did not smile. Public praise seemed to make her more uncomfortable than Boone's threats had. Afterward, she left early. From Ethan found her at the ranch near the lower pasture. Moonlight reflected in the narrow test hole where they had first measured persistent water. Clara stood with her father's old iron probe in one hand. You should have warned me before that speech," she said. "You would have stopped me." "Yes, that is why I did not." She pushed the probe into the soil and checked the depth. Ethan watched her. You spent your savings, fought the bank, and stayed here for 2 years without knowing whether I would return. We have discussed this. No, you told me the ranch deserved a chance. It did. That is not the whole reason. Clara withdrew the probe. Damp soil covered its end. Ethan stepped closer. "Why this ranch?" For a long moment she said nothing. Then she looked toward the northern ridge, where the buried channel began. "My father came here once," she said. "Long before you left. What for?" "He believed the water beneath this land could save more than one ranch." Ethan waited for her to continue. Instead, Clara wiped the probe clean. "I will show you tomorrow." She walked toward the house, leaving Ethan beside the narrow strip of water and the first honest clue to why she had refused to let his ranch die. At sunrise, Clara led Ethan to the northern ridge. She carried the iron probe, her ledger, and a narrow leather case he had never seen before. They stopped near the old flood barrier. Where the restored channel divided, one branch moved toward the lower pasture, the other continued east toward Boone's land. Clara opened the leather case and removed a hand-drawn map. The paper was worn along the folds. Faded blue lines crossed the valley, marking old creeks, shallow wells, seasonal ponds, and places where water had once reached the surface. "My father drew this," she said. Ethan recognized the outline of the coal ranch. A blue line passed beneath the northern ridge and continued through the lower pasture. He knew about the channel. He suspected it. He spent years studying wells and springs across the valley. He believed several ranches were connected by the same shallow layer of water. Ethan studied the map. Why did he come here? Your father asked him to inspect the failing well? When 7 years ago? Ethan remembered the visit only vaguely. His father had dismissed the man as another well digger asking for money. What did he find? The well was not the main problem. The land was losing water faster than it could absorb it. My father told Daniel that the old flood barrier had changed the natural flow. My father did not believe him. No, Clara pointed to a note near the lower pasture. He proposed opening a controlled route and slowing the runoff before it reached the eastern ditch. Almost the same work we eventually did. Why was it never started? Boone offered Daniel another loan. Your father chose cattle and feed over drainage work he could not be certain would succeed. Ethan folded his arms. And your father, he continued, studying the channel. Then he became ill. Clara looked toward the willows. Before he died, he asked me to come here and check whether the seep still existed. That is why you were near the ranch when Walter was injured. Yes, you did not stay only for the cattle. No, Clara moved toward the exposed gravel bed. At first, I wanted to prove my father had been right. Then Walter fell. Boone came for the herd, and the ranch stopped being a question on a map. It became your responsibility. It became something living that would disappear if everyone walked away. Ethan looked across the valley. The green pasture followed the hidden channel below them. Beyond the eastern boundary, Boone's pond reflected the morning light. What appeared to be separate pieces of land were connected by the same moving water. Your father believed this could save the whole valley, Ethan said. He believed people were fighting over too little water while allowing most of it to leave too quickly. Was he right? Clara considered the question. In some places. Not everywhere. Every ranch has different soil, slope, and damage. What worked here may fail somewhere else. Ethan smiled slightly. You never allow a story to become a miracle. Miracles make people careless. They returned to the lower pasture. The cattle were grazing in the first section. The second was resting behind a temporary fence. New grass had begun covering the muddy scar left by Ethan's failed cut. He stopped beside it. I almost destroyed this field, trying to save it quickly. You stopped before the mistake became permanent. You stopped me, you listened eventually. They walked toward the first test hole. Water still stood several inches below the surface. Ethan took a folded document from his coat. Clara looked at it. What is that? A partnership agreement? She did not take it. The ranch is still under loan. The cooperative approved it. What does it say? That we share management. From cattle income and responsibility for the debt, this is your family's land, and you invested 2 years of work and nearly all your savings. I did not do that to buy part of it. From, I know then, why are you offering? Because I do not want you staying here only until you believe your work is finished. Clara looked toward the house. What if I do not want ownership? From, then choose another name for it. She finally took the document. The agreement did not transfer half the property. It gave her a permanent share in the ranch business and repayment from future profits. From, with the option to purchase land later. You planned for me to refuse, she said. I planned for you to be difficult. Clara, read the final page, and if the next dry year ruins everything. From, then we reduce the herd, protect the soil, and begin again with what remains. That sounds like something I would say. I have been listening, she signed that afternoon. Ethan placed his father's old ranch sign near the gate. From, he did not change the Cole name. Beneath it, he added a smaller board. Managed by Ethan Cole and Clara Hayes. The ranch continued improving, but slowly they repaired the flood barrier instead of removing it. From, a controlled spillway protected the house while allowing part of the water to enter the old channel. The lower pasture was divided into smaller grazing sections. Bare ground was covered. From, weak fields were rested. Not every experiment worked. One planting failed during a hot week. A shallow channel filled with clay and had to be rebuilt. The well remained unreliable. From, but the ranch no longer depended on one well, one pasture, or one desperate decision. The following spring, Clara used her father's map to help Walter identify an old wet line on his property. From, Mercer expanded the county drainage survey. Several nearby ranchers began slowing runoff and reducing herd sizes before their fields were stripped bare. They did not copy the Cole Ranch exactly. From, they learned to read their own land. Boone continued paying for access to the eastern channel. He never apologized for trying to take the ranch, and Ethan never expected him to. From, the annual payment was enough to maintain the shared outlet and strengthen the ranch emergency fund. Boone's Pond survived the dry season because the Cole land retained more stormwater before releasing the excess east. From, the system worked better when neither ranch tried to take all of it. 1 year after Ethan's return, Thomas Avery arrived to collect the first cattle under the cooperative agreement. From, the animals were heavier than required. After the sale, Ethan made the loan payment and placed the remaining money in Clara's ledger. We made a profit, he said. A small one, it still counts. From, it counts if we do not spend it, pretending the drought is over. He closed the ledger. I knew you would say that. That evening they rode to the northern ridge. Below them, the ranch no longer looked lost. From, green followed the natural curves of the land. The cattle moved between rested pastures. The repaired channels were almost invisible beneath grass and roots. Ethan took the rounded creek stone from his pocket. From, he had carried it since the night he rode to Jonas Webb's house. My father saw useless clay, he said. Boone saw cheap land. I saw a debt, and the cattle saw damp grass. Ethan handed her the stone. From, what did you see? Clara closed her fingers around it. A place where the water had not disappeared. It had only been forced to move where no one was looking. The sun dropped behind the ridge. From, 2 years earlier, Ethan had left believing money was the only thing that could save his home. When he returned, he found that the ranch had survived because a quiet woman had watched the animals. From, read the soil and trusted the signs everyone else had dismissed. The land had never been dead. It had been waiting for someone patient enough to understand what it was saying.